And I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting will be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. Item 1, emergency evacuation procedure. There is no planned evacuation drill this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. There are emergency exits over there and by the lifts when you came in, opposite the lifts. Please do not use the lifts. On exiting, you'll be directed to the assembly point, and it is important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I have announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make necessary arrangements to assist you? Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on their planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of a planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak, having given prior notification. Such visiting members may, of course, include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole item that each item is being debated and should not vote on that item unless they have done so. I'd now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If the meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting, but there will be no further opportunity to speak on the matter when it comes back to the planning committee. The meeting will roughly follow the order set out in the agenda. However, I will amend the order if there's reason for doing so. In particular, I will take any items where a member of the public is registered to speak first before moving on to the remainder of the agenda, and I will verbally reorder the agenda as appropriate. I told you it's time to nip to the toilet. So far, apologies for my absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mike Henderson, who is substituted by Councillor Hannah Perkin, from Councillor Terry Thompson, who is substituted by Councillor Alistair Gould, from Councillor Angie Varals, who is substituted by Councillor Angela Harrison, but Councillor Harrison has since sent her apologies. From Councillor Karen Watson, who is substituted by Councillor Shelley Cheeseman. From Councillor Julian Speed, who is substituted by Councillor Lloyd Bowen, and also from Councillor Elliot Jays. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's already been mentioned, but I was asked to give Councillor Harrison's apologies.
Okay, item 3 is the minutes. The minutes of the 17th of August approved. Agreed, thank you. Don't need a move and seconder for that, do I? No, good. Item 4, do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests under the Localism Act of 2011? Councillor Gould.
Just for clarity, when the proposal at Salters Lane came up previously for the Outline Planning Commission, I withdrew from the meeting as I'd had DPI with regards to the NHS contributions. But as that matter is not up for discussion on this occasion, I was intending to participate for that discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
I actually live on the housing estate that's opposite the Preston Park site, Preston Field site. I live in Preston Park, but I have come here with a clear mind.
Okay, if anybody's got any disclosable non-pecuniary interests at this point, I'll take them as well. No? Okay. I'd like to remind the meeting that where it is possible, a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, would conclude that there is a real possibility that a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item. The member should declare this possibility and then leave the room whilst that item is considered. But before we go on, the NPPF has recently been updated, and that means that some of our reports refer to the old NPPF. Kerry's going to ask something of you all.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As Councillor Baldock set out, a new NPPF was published last week, and while there are no changes within the National Planning Policy Framework that affect any of the items that are being reported to committee this evening, in light of the changes to the paragraph numbers, officers are requesting delegation to amend any references to the NPPF that are now incorrect within the reports, conditions or reasons for refusal, to ensure that any decisions that go out are consistent with the most up-to-date version of the NPPF. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'm happy to move that what Kerry just said, that all NPPF references are delegated to officers to update in line with the new NPPF. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Winklers. All those in favour? And thank you, that's carried unanimously. Okay. Item 5 to consider. Councillor Bowen.
Thanks, Chair. Point of clarification on the agenda, on the index under 2.2, it says East Church 8 Oak Tree Close. For the papers, it's the Stables Rushet Lane Norton.
Yeah,
clarification, please.
This has been pulled. 2.2 has been pulled. Oak Tree Close. Kerry, can you just clarify?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, regrettably, the wrong papers for 2.2 were sent over to Democratic Services. The ones contained in the agenda pack are from June, and that application has already been heard and determined by the council. The reference to Oak Tree Road is therefore incorrect on the item. Oak Tree Road, which should have been heard, has been pulled from the agenda.
Thank you for spotting that. Okay, first item on the agenda tonight is 2.1 502492 full Southsea Avenue, Minster. And can I ask the officer to provide a quick summary and update on the application, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There is no update to give members on this application. I'll just very briefly present the case to you. The application is for a replacement dwelling, the property at number 170 Southsea Avenue, which is within the built confines of Minster. There's the property outlined in red. The property to the left-hand side of it is a two-storey dwelling, and the property slightly further away on the right-hand side is a single-storey bungalow. The area that's outlined in black is the location of the replacement dwelling, and there's 2 parking spaces that are shown to the front of it. This is the existing bungalow on the site. I just draw members' attention to the living room window in the side elevation, which is at the very bottom of the screen. Just because I need to refer back to that, you'll see in the report that reference is made to the impact of windows on the neighbour, and it's important to bear that in mind. This is the existing bungalow. You can just see the outline of the two-storey dwelling next door on the left-hand side. And the left-hand picture there, the large window on the right-hand side, that's the existing lounge window to the property that looks towards the neighbouring property on Seathorpe Avenue. These are the floor plans for the proposal. It's an application for a 4-bed dwelling. The accommodation is arranged, living accommodation is arranged partly over both floors, as are the bedrooms. This is the front and rear elevation of the property. It's a fairly contemporary property in terms of design. It includes a metal seam roof, weatherboarding, both horizontal on the first floor and vertical cladding on part of the ground floor. Other parts of the ground floor would be finished in brickwork. There's balconies as well within the front and rear of the property, which are partially enclosed by the walls of the roof. And these are the side elevations of the building. The left-hand picture, you'll see there is still a window proposed, a large window proposed on the ground floor, right-hand side part of that property. Now, planning permission has been granted last year for substantial extensions and refurbishment work to the bungalow, which has essentially resulted in an existing permission for a scheme that's very similar to the one that members are considering tonight. There are some very minor changes that are listed in the report between the two proposals in terms of their external appearance, but of course the fundamental difference is that rather than it being an extension to the property as permitted, this is an application to now demolish and rebuild a replacement dwelling on the site. And again, these are the elevations of the approved scheme. So here's the site photos. That's the property in question, the bungalow that will be demolished. Members can see the two-storey dwelling on the right-hand side, which does sit on a higher land level. And then the left-hand picture, members can see the roof of the bungalow on Seathorpe Avenue, which is just to the east of the dwelling. The right-hand picture gives you an indication of the existing street scene, which is quite varied in character and scale. These are pictures taken from the back of the site, looking towards the bungalow. Again, you can see the scale and raised profile of the neighbouring dwelling to the east of the site. This is the existing window to the property that partially looks into the rear garden of the property on Seathorpe Avenue, and those two pictures demonstrate that. And that's the end of my presentation, members. I'd refer you to the report and to the recommend. Oh, sorry, I do have something else to tell you. So with respect to the window, members will note that the reason why this application has come to committee is because the parish council sought restrictions on the window in the side elevation of the dwelling that would cause some overlooking of the bungalow. We don't consider that is, in this instance, something that we can restrict or object to, based on the fact that there is an existing window in almost the same location that creates the same overlooking impacts. So in our opinion, there is no worsening in terms of overlooking conditions to that neighbouring property, hence the reason why it's not considered appropriate to obscure glaze that window. The recommendation is for approval on that basis, and I refer members to the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have George Gunton, the agent, attending remotely.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. The proposals for 170 South Sea Avenue are for a new built home on the site of an existing bungalow. The proposals are largely the same in terms of appearance, scale and impact as those that were previously approved under application 22-505-204, which is for the extension and reconfiguration of the existing bungalow. After further intrusive investigations of the existing structure, it was determined that it's impossible to retain the relatively small elements of the existing building that would have remained. A new build approach is therefore required, hence this new application. This has presented many opportunities to substantially improve the energy performance of the proposals in ways that would not have been possible with the original scheme. The proposals have a high level of insulation throughout, and combined with the use of an air source heat pump will now provide a 63% improvement in terms of carbon emissions compared to the current 2021 building regulations. As your officer has pointed out, the reason this application is before the committee today is due to the Parish Council requesting that all side-facing windows be obscure glazed. As set out in the officer's report, we're proposing that one of these windows serving the dining room in the new proposals is clear glazed. The single window is a direct replacement for an existing clear glazed window within the existing dwelling. The proposed window is both slightly further to the rear and slightly smaller when compared to the existing window. The inclusion of this window cannot therefore be considered to have any impact on neighbouring amenity when compared to the existing site. If anything, there is a small improvement in privacy through smaller size and location further to the rear of the house. All other windows along the side elevations of the property are proposed as obscure glazed and fixed shut below 1.7 metres height from the internal floor level. There was a similar condition imposed on the original approval, requiring all side windows to be obscured. This was imposed without consultation with us, and we didn't therefore have the opportunity to raise these points as part of that application. As set out in the officer's report, the application of this condition to the dining room window on the previous approval was unreasonable. Given the relevant considerations of policy apply equally to the application before you tonight, the imposition of a similar condition would remain unreasonable with regard to the dining room window. Given the similarity to the previous permission to extend the existing bungalow, the substantial improvement in energy efficiency over those proposals, and the absence of any change in the level of overlooking of neighbouring properties, we would ask you to accept the recommendation of your officers and approve this application this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has about the proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Secondly, Councillor Booth. Anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. In the last week or two, actually, I've been down that particular road, and while I was there, I did take a look at the from the outside, obviously, the property we are talking about, and my observations of that road. There's various different properties of all sorts of designs and various heights that have obviously been passed, and I honestly think that this, if this is passed tonight by this committee, this will be an improvement to the existing bungalow that stands there. So I am totally in favour of this proposal for this to be passed tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt.
Chair, I'm not going to say too much about it, but apart from just noticing that the Parish Council support the application, and it's only come to us because they mentioned about the obscure glazing, but when they were questioned about that, they didn't come back to us. I don't think this should even be at the committee. If they don't come back to us, then that they support it. The officers say it should be go ahead, and I agree with them. Hopefully ones like this but don't come back next time.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, in defence of that, I'm disappointed that the point made under 4.3 regards Minster Parish Council. They didn't actually question the scale and size of the development and the potential loss of a bungalow. You'll know, Mr. Chairman, I'll be consistent with regards to the island of Sheppey is in desperate need to retain and improve its stock of bungalows. I'll leave it at that. However, the agent, I know we're not allowed to ask questions of the agent, and I don't intend to, but through you, Mr. Chairman, the agent mentioned a glamorous array of enhancements to the property to increase its green credentials. He also mentioned air source heat pump. I see no mention in the report, unless the officer can direct me to it, about an acoustic survey for the air source heat pump. And then I'll come back if I can, please.
Andy?
No, there's no mention in the report. The application doesn't include an air source proposals. But we do have a condition that requires the 50% uplift in building regulations in terms of energy efficiency that we would apply to new or replacement residential dwellings. So we're confident that the scheme will be able to provide obviously an uplift in energy efficiency to meet our local plan policies.
As it's been promised here tonight, can we incorporate it as a new condition? Obviously has the agent's agreement.
I don't have an issue with a additional condition being imposed. If we could have the opportunity to discuss the wording of that condition with your officers before the decision, which I believe is what the recommendation is anyway, that would be appreciated. I think what we're looking for is a
I'm going to have to stop. We're not allowed to do this. Sorry.
Fine.
Paul. Andy.
That's all right. Yeah, we can amend the sustainability condition to include provision and details of an air source heat pump, and if members consider that that's subject to mitigation relating to noise impacts, then we can require that information by condition as well.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Once I'm on the hook, I'm on the hook. It is fairly normal, respectfully, for air source heat pumps to be mounted on the side of the property. On the plan view we see there, it can only be mounted on one side. So the neighbouring property would be the only property to suffer from the acoustic sound from the condensing unit. You couldn't put it in the back garden because respectfully, the residents of the property wouldn't want it in the back garden. So I'm just very concerned that it's at this stage, it was mentioned in the opening comments by the agent that it does, it does include an air source heat pump. The documentation we have before us does not mention that. It does fill me with a bit of concern. With that and the loss of bungalow, I will be voting against the application.
Councillor Gould.
Just for clarification, if the residents had wanted to, after the property was built, put in an air source heat pump, I presume that wouldn't come anywhere near planning committee.
They would almost certainly be able to do that, I think, under permitted development.
Okay, do we want to include the condition worded by Mr. Byrne regarding the heat pump? Councillor Winkliff.
I take it you're looking for a proposal. If that's the case, I'll prepare to propose that.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bowen. Does anybody wish to speak to that? This is the condition is that it's incorporated. The precise wording will be incorporated within the delegation.
Yes, clearly understood.
Okay. Those in favour, please indicate. I've got no one to count for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? 2. Abstentions? 3. I hope that adds up. Okay, so on the basis of that, can we take a vote on the actual recommendation? Those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Those against? 1, 2. That's carried. Right, the next item is 2.4, which is 501777 Full Crockham Farmhouse. And we have officer update, please.
Thank you, Chairman. No update for this, so I'll launch into the presentation. This is an application for a erection of an annex ancillary to the main dwelling, incorporating a log store and a garage. And there's also a small office in the building as well. In terms of the site, so going back, it's Crockham Farmhouse, Crockham Lane in Herne Hill. This is an overview of the site. If you can see where my cursor is, that's the existing dwelling. The location of the proposed annex and garage, etc., is where my cursor is there. There's a row of 4 dwellings just to the south located there. So we're in the countryside in local plan purposes, but there is a sort of small amount of development in the local context there. In terms of the site, that's outlined in red there, and where the annex, garage, etc., is proposed to be sited is, I'll skip that one. Is here towards the northwest of the site, just to the north of those four dwellings. So there's the outline of the building there. There's also 3 parking spaces proposed, and the use of an existing access as well. Just going back to the previous drawing, it's worth noting, as set out in the report, there's a extant approval on this site for a garage and store, which was proposed to be located in the same location as the existing proposal, and a second building was approved as well under that permission, for a cart shed. So this is a proposal for one building. The floor space of this one building is actually slightly less than the combined floor space of those 2 buildings that have already gained approval. In terms of the floor area, there's an annex and a garage at ground floor, and an home office and a small storage area at, I say first floor, within the roof space. The elevations are shown here. Typical of a traditionally designed building that you see sort of throughout the Swale countryside. Materials are a brick plinth with weatherboarding above it, and a plain clay tiled roof and solar panels as well. There's some what officers consider to be some appropriately designed dormers as well, which provide the windows for the home office and the store at first floor level. Just going back to that application that's already got planning permission on the site, these are the elevations of that, and the height of the building proposed now is the same height as the garage that was granted planning permission previously. In terms of the site photos, so it's here on the right hand side. It's currently used essentially for informal parking by the residents of the dwelling, and this is that same photo from the same part of the site from another angle. Here you can see straight down the road is the existing dwelling, Crockham Farmhouse. On the right are the 4 dwellings that I referred to, and so the annex and garage building would be on the left here, essentially behind this telegraph pole. This is a slightly closer view of that existing dwelling that's opposite the site, and here's a view of the highway. There's a closer view of the existing dwelling. And this is what the site faces out towards, which is an existing dwelling on the other side of the road. Yeah, that doesn't add too much. So yeah, in terms of the application, as per the report, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Kelsey Roffey to speak? If you just come down to the chair and there's a microphone for you. There's a large button with, I think, a red sticker on it, so press that when you're ready. In that chair.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Kelsey Roffey and I am a neighbour of Sarah Killick. I live at number 10 Manor Cottages on Crockham Lane and I live close to the proposed building at Crockham Farmhouse. I drive past her house daily. Excuse me. I have known Sarah Killick for 15 years and admire her for thinking ahead for the future by creating the building, creating a space where both she and her partner could be looked after as they age by the family who live in the farmhouse shows foresight. I understand that a planning application has already been accepted for a garage and separate carport, and this is an amendment to the original. I believe this revised version is on the same site and that it will be similar than the two buildings that they have already got planning permission for. I really like the design and it will be a lovely addition to the lane. It is in keeping with other buildings in the area, so it will not be disjointed or out of place. I cannot see how permission can't be granted for something that looks practically the same as the buildings that they already have planning permission for. It is a bit smaller and certainly no higher, and it is being built in the same materials. Planning office has recommended it for approval, so please, councillors, give them your support tonight and let them get on with the building. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And can I ask Roger Joyce, who is the agent?
It's already on. Is it on? Excellent. Well, good evening, councillors. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm doing so as the architect for the existing proposal on the site, referred to in the officer's report. This is a revised application, as you've heard, alternative to 21504835, itself a renewal of SW 05 1646. So I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the designer of the amended scheme, who can't be here to speak to you. As you heard, the applicant seeks to future-proof their home and ultimately to downsize, move into this proposed built annex as they get older, and to allow their children to move into the house and be on hand if and when they need help and care. As you can see, I've been involved with this scheme for 18 years, so age is marching on. You'll have read that the existing scheme for 2 detached garage buildings could be built at any time, and that this proposal before you tonight involves a building that neatly combines both buildings into one, similarly designed on the same site, actually with a slightly smaller footprint than the area of the permitted buildings. The proposal, as you've heard, is no higher than the proposed. The one that has consent, and it's found to be policy compliant by the case officer. You also have read the planning policies and local guidance have not changed since the previous scheme was approved, and the case officer concludes the amended proposal would have no greater impact on the surroundings than its predecessor. Other considerations contained in objections such as siting of a shepherd's hut are not before you tonight. They're being dealt with by the planning enforcement team, so you should not be distracted by them when you look at the proposal that is before you. So the recommendation is to approve with conditions that include restrictions in its use, rescinding of the current consent, and the approval of details such as levels and design of a retaining wall. All in all, councillors, there's been a consent for this proposal in one form or another for 18 years, and this amended proposal is recommended for approval. So I urge you to uphold the officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's report, seconded by Councillor Booth. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this? We go straight to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Before the agent even managed to sit down. Right. The next item is 2.5, which is 5011167 Site A, Preston Fields. And I'll ask the officer to provide an update and presentation. We're just doing technical stuff.
Thank you, Chair and members. This is a approval of reserved matters application following the grants of outline planning permission under reference 16508802/OUT for the erection of 231 dwellings at Site A, land at Prestonfield, Salters Lane, Faversham. This plan shows the aerial photograph of the site in question, with Canterbury Road to the north, Salters Lane to the east, and road to the west. Next, please. So this is just the same plan, but as the location plan of the site. This is the overall site layout. Given it's a very large plan, I've broken it up into north and south. So next, please. This is the northern area of the site, showing the access to Canterbury Road to the A2, with the area of open space and the SUD scheme to the north. Next, please. And this shows the southern part of the site with the central landscape feature within the site, and further SUDS features and public open space within the site, together with an access to the left-hand side. Next, please. This is a plan which indicates the pepper potting of affordable housing around the site. Mention of this was made in representations by Faversham Town Council, where you can see that the affordable housing is found all around the site. Mention was made it was just to the eastern boundary. That's clearly not the case. It's found to the north, to the east, and to the west, and indeed to the south of the site. So it does show good pepper potting for both affordable rent and shared ownership properties. Thank you. Thanks. This plan shows the key public open space areas, showing an area of 2.5 hectares, which is consistent with the Section 106 agreement and the areas formed by SUDS within the site as well. Next, please. This plan shows the proposed planting within the site, which will be subject to has been subject to detailed consideration. That's planting within the north of the sites. Again, planting both within and to the periphery of the site within the south of the sites. Next, please. These plans will give members a general flavour of the house types within the sites. Well designed, well articulated, designed, which provide good detailing, the use of porches, chimneys, vernacular treatment appropriate to Faversham. Next, please. And again, this plan shows some proposed house types within the sites. Next, please. This plan shows a street scene within the site to see how the relationship of the proposed units are found within an extended street scene. Next, please. As mentioned within the report, the site has been subject to a design code which has been approved by officers. Please. Within the code, it provides a level of detailing. It's a very large and detailed document, and this provides some of the architectural elements and details found locally which have been incorporated within the proposed development. Next, please. So as photographs, this photograph from Ashford Road to the west of the site, looking east. This is a view from the north at Canterbury Road, looking towards the south of the site. This is a view from Salters Lane to the east, looking west across the site. And lastly, this is an aerial photograph of the site, looking towards the south. Thank you, Chair. The report I produced is very comprehensive and sets out matters pertaining not only to this application, but also to the previous application in terms of Section 106 obligations secured at the outline stage. Faversham Town Council have made a number of detailed comments relating to matters of climate resilience, environmental matters relating to tenure blind, which I've already discussed. Many of these matters, Chair and members, are subject to planning conditions at the outline stage, which remain to be discharged, and those conditions need to be discharged prior to commencement of development. Most recently, an application was submitted in respect of energy efficiency, which shows a 60% carbon reduction within the site. That condition is available online, and I would welcome Faversham Town Council to view that application and to provide any comments to me as necessary. Other matters within their representations are addressed. Matters relating to open space, matters relating to EV charging, which are to be provided, biodiversity net gain, matters pertaining to the cycle path connecting Ashford Road to Canterbury Road. They're all covered by the outline planning permission, and indeed covered by the Section 106 associated with the outline consent. The application is therefore before you, Chair, with a recommendation for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Joe Hanslip, the agent? You have 3 minutes from when you push the button, or don't push the button if it's on.
Chairman, members, I'm pleased to be able to address you this evening on behalf of my client, the applicant, Redrow Homes South East. Since acquiring the site almost 2 years ago, Redrow has been working positively with the council and stakeholders. Preston Fields is an allocation in Swales adopted local plan. It has the benefit of an outline planning permission for up to 250 dwellings, and the principle of development has long since been established. Our reserve matter submissions follows the principles set out in the approved master plan. As has been mentioned, the reserve matter submission has been developed following extensive pre-application and post-application engagement, resulting in a high quality, sustainable development that's presented to you this evening. Considerable time and effort has centred around the scheme's design code, which was approved via condition in August and establishes high standards for the development. This includes a range of character areas, bespoke house types specifically designed to reflect Faversham's character, as well as providing numerous locally distinctive features like chimneys. The scheme has been designed to redesigned to widen the green spine and address all technical matters on highways, drainage and environment. It includes 35% affordable housing with a range of 1 to 4 bedroom homes, which are distributed across the site to ensure that they are tenure blind. In providing this much needed housing, it is important to highlight that the climate emergency and sustainability are at the heart of the proposals you're being asked to consider this evening. Please note, the energy efficient design of the homes means that the building regulation requirements are exceeded. No gas boilers will be used. A 60% carbon reduction will be achieved by using air source heat pumps located to on a rear slab of the units with fabric enhancements. PV is not required. However, if new purchasers wish to acquire PV panels, they will be able to do so. The 2.5 hectares of new landscape public open space includes wet and dry habitats and a central green spine, which includes a cycle path connecting Ashford Road to Canterbury Road. Recent condition submissions demonstrate that the 10% biodiversity net gain will be significantly exceeded, reaching a figure just below 20% in area habitat terms. Other ecological enhancements incorporate bird and bat boxes, tree, shrub and hedgerow planting, wildflower grassland and habitat paths, creating an attractive place for residents, flora and fauna alike. That 30 seconds. Given the green credentials, the high design standards and overall sustainability of the scheme on a site which benefits from an outline planning permission, we urge you to vote in line with your officer's recommendation and resolve to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Seconded, Councillor Booth. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Councillor Winklis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Though I'm against these massive developments taking place with lack of infrastructure, the point with this, it's already had outline planning. So if we was to turn this down, I'm quite sure the inspector would overrule us and this council would be having a heavy penalty against it paying the court cost. And in saying the other fact I want to say, I think for what they showed us just now, it looks a well-designed scheme within the Faversham area design. So I will be going along with the officer on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chairman. It's the first time I've seen this because I'm a visiting member to a certain extent, or subbing this evening. Personally, I don't actually agree. I don't think that is a particularly good design. I think it looks crowded from the image, but that's by the by. That's been outlined permission. The only comment I was going to make in terms of almost like a highway, getting around the proposed development. On the, I'm going to say the east side, there's no, you're either going to have to go all the way around the houses to get out on the, I presume, the access to the bottom of that screen, or onto the A2, whereas those on the west side can get out onto, is that the Ashford Road? Would it not have been possible to have a short connecting piece of road from the east side to enable that to happen, rather than to go all the way around, which also then goes against green, because you're driving, well, that's not a huge distance, you're driving further. Thank you.
William?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, access was considered at the outline planning stage, and it was deemed to be acceptable by the local highway authority, Kennet County Council. Clearly, matters pertaining to the internal arrangements within the site were also considered by Kennet County Council, and similarly were found to be acceptable. Clearly, there's a central spine running through the site which allows walking and cycling from the south of the site to the north. So it's not as if that central spine is particularly unavailable to any particularly one part of the development, because it is essential within the scheme. So it is readily accessible both to persons living both east and west of that spine. So on that basis, matters pertaining to access and connectivity are found to be acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I mean, on the density, we're actually 19 below what they can, well, we expected them to do, but Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Looking at the access, and I realise this was done at the previous application, but I wasn't on the committee at that point in time. I'm slightly well, one question is, which entrance would the construction traffic be expected to use? And the second point I'd like to make is I think it's the Faversham Road entrance looks rather narrow, and I assume it has been looked at and it is deemed suitable for refuse freighters and such like that may be delivering to the or collecting from the site after the dwellings are built. Yeah.
William?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, access was considered at the outline stage and was deemed to be acceptable. In terms of the internal arrangements, vehicles, refuse vehicles and the like were appropriately tracked throughout the site in order that they can appropriately enter and leave the site in a forward gear. Matters pertaining to construction management are subject to conditions on the outline, excuse me, conditions on the outline planning permission, and will be discharged, and we will clearly consult appropriate bodies in that process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. So having looked at the application, I can see that the disabled dwellings that are going to be built are actually down in the southern left-hand corner of the site, which is actually the furthest from the town, and also the furthest from any bus stop, which the nearest bus stop for them is actually on the other side of the motorway bridge on the Ashford Road. Whereas if they were put more to the Canterbury Road end, then there is a bus stop just past the junction.
William?
Are you talking about market? I assume you're talking about affordable housing, yes?
Yes, I am, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the mix of affordable housing in terms of the provisions for disabled access and adaptable housing has been agreed with the housing officer. So on that basis, officers deem the proposal to be acceptable. Thank you.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Whilst I acknowledge this is reserved matters for 231 homes, for the minute, Chairman, I'm again bitterly disappointed that Kent County Council Highways are not represented this evening. This is a huge application for this committee to consider, and I think it would have been appropriate because there are some questions that I've got that can't be answered directly this evening. So for the minute. Should this go ahead, there will be approximately 1,400 to 2,080 car movements per day in and out of this site. Consistency says that excludes Amazon and other transport companies. That's a big number. Experience also shows, Mr. Chairman, referring to page 64, I am concerned where it says, fourth paragraph on the bottom, speed restraint features are required every 60 metres to provide a target speed of 20 miles an hour. There is a substantial development 12 miles from where we sit today that has had speed restraints systematically removed from the development because of complaints by the residents when vehicles go over them. Just a point. But I understand the need to keep speed down, particularly with a number of, what is it? Let's get the terminology right. Affordable housing. You can draw your conclusion from that. Page 65, my second concern, second paragraph down. Again, it's a question for highways who can't answer. The updated refuse vehicle sweat path analysis has demonstrated that the development can be satisfactorily serviced. That is, Mr. Chairman, if every household parks their car on their driveway. That is not consistent with large-scale developments, as we have seen in this borough and throughout England. People have an appetite to park halfway on the path, halfway on the road, causing obstruction, causing grief, and not only for refuse vehicles, Chairman, I'm talking more about emergency service vehicles who will have trouble accessing it. It's a problem I know we have, and it's something that we are at this stage unlikely to be able to enforce. And coming to that final point, again on page 65, it mentions a traffic regulation order. Again, let's be careful what we wish for. It is extremely difficult to enforce TROs once it's been in place, and we do not have, respectfully, the local authorities to be able to monitor and enforce those restrictions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt.
Thanks, Chair. One real minute detail that I've got on this one, I think design is obviously the thing that we really need to look at on here. There's one section in the northeast corner, looking at it on the screen. There's a pumping station up in that corner.
Can we zoom in on that?
As you go around that road, there are no footpaths going up to those houses there, and there's grass verges. And similar to Councillor Booth with concern with parking, looking at that whole development, I know that I can just see now that there will be problems in that road with that grass verge being parked on outside someone's house. Dealing with it on new developments at the moment, and someone parks the car on the verge outside someone's house and it causes problems. That whole road there, I think, does need to be looked at to see what can be done to stop that. So it hasn't got any footpaths at all that go up go up to that section to the houses there. The grass verge as you come in on the right either needs to be a proper footpath to go into that, or there needs to be some bollards on that section. Because I can guarantee that if that is done like that, when it's adopted or in the future as a management company, people will be asking for bollards there. If officers can just take that away maybe and look at that with the applicant, just to double check it and see what can be done. So there's no reason to give it a refusal, but I'd be happy to get that just looked at the detail with them to see what can be done.
Yeah, I concur. Those estates do end up being a mess, and it only seems a small area. Can that be looked at a bit?
Yes, certainly so. I mean, the layout within that driveway is very much a private drive, so it's an area where vehicle speeds will be very low, and it's a shared pedestrian vehicular environment. But yes, we can certainly look at the provision of bollards to stop people parking within that area in order to maintain safe access and egress to that pumping station. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Chair. I won't go over all of the points that Faversham Town Council have put forward, because obviously they're quite detailed, but a couple that are probably worth noting is, I mean, firstly, I appreciate that we're looking at reserved matters, but I think it's worth noting that this is going to increase the population of Faversham by a fair chunk, and the necessary infrastructure for these residents is questionable, I would say, in terms of GP provision, dentist provision, school provision. In terms of kind of the smaller details of the application, there's a lot of hard landscaping that doesn't appear to be permeable, and in terms of climate resiliency, it's probably advantageous for the area to improve its permeability of its hard landscaping, so that there's less surface runoff and also more water is absorbed into the soakaways. In terms of the affordable housing, recently the town council did a survey with AECOM to look at the need for the different tenure types of affordable housing, and this application, as much as I welcome the 35% affordable housing, as there's a need in Faversham for that, it's recommending 90% of the affordable housing is affordable rental tenure, whereas the AECOM report said that we should be requiring 66% affordable rent and 34% affordable ownership, and that affordable ownership is still a product that is needed within Faversham. So I would like to see the applicant come back with a different ratio for the affordable housing tenure. Thank you.
Has the Faversham neighbourhood plan been adopted?
The neighbourhood plan's at Reg 16 at the moment.
Is there anything you can say on that, William?
Thank you, Chair. The outline planning permission on the site secured the 35% housing on the site, and that was agreed at that time. In terms of other matters, talking about permeable paving, matters pertaining to drainage and the use of hard landscaping paving is subject to condition, and that will be discharged in consultation with the lead local flood authority at Kent County Council. Thank you.
Gary?
Yes, sorry. I was just going to echo what William was saying, that, you know, the affordable housing is something that was secured at outline stage, and while the Faversham local plan has been submitted at Regulation 16, is currently up to consultation, so it's still at a very early stage. So, you know, the weighting of those policies would need to be considered, but in any event, the affordable housing was secured at outline stage. So in this case, we need to go with what was approved at outline.
Councillor Gould?
Thank you. Just two things. Just for clarity about the Southern Water, they say that Southern Water seeks to limit this timescale to maximum 24 months from a firm commitment. I just don't quite understand what that actually means in terms of the timescale before they've actually upgraded the sewage works. It's got to be done within 24 months.
Do you have a reference?
Sorry, page 68, the top paragraph. So that was, I just wanted some clarity on that one as to exactly what restriction that put on the development in terms of when the sewage works will be upgraded. And the other one on infrastructure was on page 70. There's no comments from UK Power Networks. Can we be sure that there will be adequate supply to the development, given that it's going to be quite a high use development with EV charging and air source heat pumps? I'm just surprised that there has been no comment from UK Power Networks at all on that.
Kerry?
Thank you, Chair. So in relation to the Southern Water comments, this is to do with foul connecting to the public sewer. And essentially what the applicant will need to do is they'll need to make an application to Southern Water in order to connect to the public sewer. It sits outside of what we can do as part of the planning application. Turning to UK Power Networks, obviously the site is allocated within the local plan. So that is something that would have been considered as part of the adoption of the local plan through the consultation that was undertaken. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor J. Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad you got my name right anyway. Yeah, I've got to agree with both Councillor Bowen and Councillor Martin that the link, well, the road, there should be a link road at the south end of it, and any affordable housing should be nearer to the end, or the exit or entrance to the actual site itself. I mean, we are looking to reduce the number of traffic movements, and obviously if you've got the amount of traffic movements that was originally quoted, all coming out of virtually one end, purely because they've got to go right the way around the site to get to it. You could split it in half by just putting that link road. It would reduce the number of traffic movements in just one of the exits or entrances to this site. And I do think it's not a hard choice to make. It's a simple way of reducing the amount of traffic that's going to be going up and down that site, especially if there's lots of families there. And sites like this tend to have children about, and I would rather see less movement of cars within the site. And to do that, it will be a case of putting that little link road at the south end of the site, and obviously moving the affordable houses closer to those exits. I think that's not too much to ask, and I think that's the only condition I would recommend for me to be voting for this. Thank you.
Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so in terms of the access, as Mr. Allwood has already set out, this was something that was determined at outline stage. So in terms of changing that, that's not really something we can do within the scope of this application. What we're considering as part of this application is the scale, design, layout and landscaping of the proposal in front of us. Turning to the affordable housing provision, how that's presented throughout the site, it is pepper potted throughout the site, and that is something that's been discussed with our affordable housing officer. And in terms of the policy requirement within the local plan, it is considered to meet that. So I think it'd be quite difficult to insist upon that being switched around, although I do understand the points that you're making. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, on the proposal, sorry.
Do you want to come back?
I would like to come back. Yeah, just to clear my mind. On the proposal, it says the outline application for erection of 250 dwellings with all matters reserved except for access. Now, I'm showing that that would improve access if we had that road there.
Kerry, can you clarify that one?
Yeah, the access was considered at outline stage, so except for access. This application is the approval of reserved matters, and that includes the scale, design, layout, and landscaping. So the access arrangement has already been approved. Thank you.
Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to come back, Chairman. I'm surprised nobody's made mention of it. At page 67, KCC Waste Management have made a comment. Second paragraph, whilst we do not wish to raise objection to the proposal, what I seek is assurance from the officers that an appropriate layout and mitigation is adopted in that particular area where the HWRC will, let's say, remain. Because, yeah, people will have that as a neighbour and people will become perhaps a little choosy as to where they live. Thank you, Chairman.
Kerry?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, again, this is a reserved matters application. The impacts of, the neighbouring dwellings in principle would have been considered at the outline stage, and that would have included matters relating to noise disturbance. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you. I understand that, but this relates to this application and the comment relates to this application. I seek that there is reassurance that the final scheme, should that go through on delegated decision or reserved matters, does incorporate effective mitigation for that. That's what I seek.
It doesn't say at the bottom these matters are covered at the outline stage via the 106 agreement. So I guess that's still to be, the details of that still have to be.
Yes, if there are any conditions relating to noise mitigation, they would have been secured at outline stage, and those details will still need to be provided.
Okay. Did I move the officer's recommendation? It was a while ago now. I did. Excellent. Well done, me. Okay, if all those in favour, please indicate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those against. 1, 2, 3. Abstentions. 4. Okay, that is carried. Thank you. The next item is 2.6, which is 501017 Full, Barton Hill Drive, Minster. Are we having a shifty around? Straight on? Okay. Okay then, I'll ask the officers to give an update and presentation.
On. In terms of updates, members would have seen the comments from Natural England in terms of their comments that the proposed development would not have a significant adverse impact upon the designated SPA and Ramsar sites to the north of the island. The second update relates to the NHS comments, who have been somewhat dragging their feet, Chair, in terms of providing any comments on this planning application. I think the crucial thing within their comment I received yesterday is that it would not be usual for primary care to request a first contribution towards increased capacity. But to date, Chair and members, we haven't had a definitive response from NHS on such matters. If members are mindful to approve the scheme, clearly we would seek delegation that we continue to discuss matters with the NHS care team, and that if they do request any contribution, it will form part of the Section 106 agreement that's currently with our legal team. Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a 3-storey, 66-bed care home. associated access, parking, landscaping, and ancillary facilities. Land west of Barton Hill Drive, Minster-on-Sea. The red line area indicates the sites of the proposed care home. This is a location plan showing the site in question and the access off of that, off of one of the four arms from that roundabout. Next, please. This is a site plan showing the overall layout of the building and its general configuration within its plot. I've defined it or described it as a half butterfly layout. Next, please. So these series of plans show the proposed floor arrangements from ground to first, and then to the second floor accommodation. Next, please. This plan shows both the south and west elevations of the building. In elevational form, it, I think, quite cleverly provides definition both in terms of plan and elevation, breaking up the overall mass and form of the building by having slight recessed areas where the material changes colour. That area is then recessed, and it just breaks out the overall mass of the building when you look at it as a single entity. Next, please. And this is rear elevation with a similar arrangement in terms of setting in those elements to break up the overall mass and form of the proposed care home. Next, please. This is an illustrative 3D image of the care home when viewed when approaching the site. Next, please. Some photographs of the site. So this is a view from the west of the roundabout, looking east across the frontage towards the existing housing along Barton Hill Drive. Next, please. This is a view with the existing housing at Barton Hill Drive behind me, as it were, looking towards the southwest and towards the roundabout. Next, please. This is a view further up Barton Hill Drive, looking a longer distance with the existing housing on the left, and the proposed site would be to the right-hand side behind that lamppost, I think. Next, please. And this is a view from a view towards the north, looking at to be the general position of the fourth arm running into the site, and looking in front of you is where the care home will be, and the existing housing is the right-hand side. And these just show some imagery of the existing housing in the area along Barton Hill Drive. The application is before you, members and chair, with the recommendation for approval, subject to conditions as set out in my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Luke Thorpe, the agent?
Thank you, Chair, members. My name is Luke Thorpe, here to represent L&T Care Developments and highlight the benefits of our proposed investment in Minster. We have extensive experience in developing and operating care homes across the country, having built over 200 to date. Working with our partners, our care homes have consistently achieved high ratings from the Care Quality Commission, with an excellent standard of care provided to our older residents. We are proposing to develop a new purpose-built care home for older people that provides general residential and dementia care. It will be serviced with an appropriate level of parking that is in line with local standards and more than suitable for the number of people expected to be present at any one time. To shift travel trends towards sustainable and healthy options, a travel plan will be implemented alongside the provision of electric vehicle and cycle facilities. The design of the care home reflects the nature of its use and will complement the characteristics of the surrounding area to establish a distinctive, cohesive and attractive place. Internally, the building is designed to provide a high level of care and desirable facilities for older people, including level and amenable access from the public realm and throughout the care home, clusters of bedrooms that naturally form small communities of residents and can be adapted for different types of care, and a range of quality dining, social, entertainment, health and beauty and staff facilities. Connecting to the outside, the communal facilities and bedrooms will benefit from easy access to extensive landscaped gardens with incredible views over the wider area. The landscaping is intended to attractively frame the care home and public realm with border planting, hedging and trees, utilising native, pollinating and sensory species to benefit residents, passers-by and local wildlife. To ensure the building is resilient to climate change and protects residents' amenity, it is specified to meet and exceed modern standards. This includes it has the ability to generate most of the home's daily energy, heating and cooling needs on site using solar energy and ground source heat pumps, with appropriate levels of insulation, ventilation and glazing to ensure residents benefit from a comfortable internal living environment throughout the year. In all, this sustainable, healthy and carbon effective proposal will improve the quality and choice of care accommodation in the locality, providing for what older people deserve most: a sense of community and home, a great quality of life and care, and a comfortable, healthy and familiar living environment. Our investment will also generate broad benefits for your local communities by creating greater employment, training and career development opportunities and boosting the local economy for increased spending and supply chain growth. This amazing development is not speculative and we are committed to its delivery within the next 2 years. I therefore trust that members will support your office's recommendation to enable an important contribution to the growth, resilience and well-being of Minster and its communities into the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Seconded, Councillor Booth. Anybody wish to speak on this? Oh, blimey. Well, I saw Councillor Marchington, you haven't spoken yet.
I do apologise. Barton Hill is already developed on the Minster side, which is what you've just shown. On the western side, this is part of where the large housing development is going to be placed, and this is what the road access and the roundabout is for. So, in view of that, there's going to be over 700 houses there, along with all the other developments on Sheppey. We do need and are short of old people's homes, and this is a very good spot for it. I think it's very close to the main drag, so there's no one up and down back streets trying to find it. It's slightly raised ground there, so all the residents to the south have got open views from Faversham to Rainham, so it's sort of a pleasurable place to be. So I think it's well sited, and I don't think I can have any objection to it. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chairman. In principle, I've got no huge objections to the design of and agree with Councillor Marchington. There is a need, looking at some of the comments, whether it's a future sustainable need as a business is for them to decide. My concern is on the surprise parking, page 101, 4.14. The applicant has given a breakdown of indicative staff and shift patterns, which is useful. However, the exact number of staff per residence is required. 25, I think it is 25 parking spaces for 66 beds. I don't think that's anywhere near enough. That's for staff and visiting members of family for 66 beds. I don't think that is sufficient there, despite what that highway says. Public transport, the only way there is really by your own private vehicle. and that gives me great concern, particularly on that last line where Kate Highways are saying they need more information. Have we had that information? Thank you.
William? Do we want to come back to that and take the next speaker? Okay, Councillor Winkliff.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have the similar concerns as the last speaker. I know the area well. I drove by it about 4 hours ago, and it's way out with no public transport. There's no amenities. It's right on the corner of a busy road or busy two roads, a roundabout. So I have great concerns about passing this. But I would also say it's a very derelict piece of land. So you can see why it's earmarked for development. It's been neglected. It's agricultural land. I know we're not here to discuss this particularly, but it's happened so many times. Land gets neglected, becomes unsightly. Then we have difficulties of planning committee to turn these developments down when it comes to the inspector. So, but on the first point, I do have grave concerns about lack of amenities and public transport for elderly people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Winkliff. I think we've got a response first, William.
Thank you, Chair. At paragraphs 4.16 and onward to 4.19, the highways officer makes further comment in respect of a supporting statement produced by the applicant, basically confirming that the details are acceptable in terms of the shift patterns and the AM PM movements. And then at 4.19 concludes raised no objection subject to conditions relating to parking, cycle parking, EV charging, and a construction management plan. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hunt.
Thanks, Chair. So the only way to say this is it's a good start, because I think more needs to be done to it. It's good that as a care home, I think again it is needed, but the design of it, I don't like at all. If we've got the just on the screen maybe of what it actually looked like at the front of it, that I can understand what's been done with the sort of the butterfly design, as it says, and how it's been set back. But looking at that, just a massive brick, basically, as you come around that roundabout. Our policy states, is it A21, A12, sorry, that it should achieve high quality design responding to the local landscape character and distinctiveness as identified in the surround landscape character. This is going to be a building right on the roundabout with landscape fields across of it and looking down into across Elmley. This, I would say, doesn't fit in with the landscape. It also says in there that it should, I can find it, be incorporating in with the existing houses that's there. And whilst it says in the report that the Barton Hill Drive is typically 2-storey, and this will be 3-storey, this is 3-storey plus a mass block across this whole site. There is no housing along Barton Hill Drive that it's got lots of housing. You've got a big terrace of 3-storey houses going all the way along there that you're going to have this mass that's there. So I do have a concern with it. Obviously that the mass needs to be there, but I think a lot more can be done with the design of it to try and blend it a little bit more. It says again in the report that the intention of the applicant is to create a landmark building. And I think the question for us as a committee is, do we really want this as a landmark building, or do we want something better? And I think this needs to go back to the officers to work with the applicant and come up with a better design. As it stands, I don't think we can be approving it. It needs better, and if design isn't dealt with, we can look at refusing it. So I'd like this to go back and have something better.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. You have echoed some of my thoughts when I saw it. It was okay, Councillor Gould.
Thank you. Just to ask if the office could perhaps really push the NHS on provision there, because a care home doesn't just generate visits, it generates a substantial number of phone calls on a daily basis, and a GP will need somewhere to do those calls. So it does have an impact on capacity and the estate that's required by the GPs, just because that an awful lot of stuff is done by phone these days. The ICB should know that, but yeah, that I think you can feed that back from the coalface.
Councillor Booth.
Here we go. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, let's cover a few points that the agent spoke about first. The proposal is for a care home for older people. Care home. A care home to me, and I'm sure to the majority of people here, offers a peaceful location appropriate in scale and size, predominantly for people to undertake perhaps the final years of their lives. I hope you agree with that. So I don't think that's what we've got. The comment was made, incredible views. Okay, let's deal with that. The view to the west and to the north will be, trust me, will be obscured by nearly 700 houses. That's an incredible view, yeah? The view to the south and to the east sees, on average, 9,000 car movements, vehicle movements per day along the A2500 and Barton Hill Drive. On that sketch, Barton Hill Drive running up on the right-hand side. 9,000 a day. Now, forgive me, but if I had an elderly relative that was looking for a care home, that would be a question. We come on to the scale and design. Can we go back, please, to the front face? Okay, the only thing, Mr. Chairman, this reminded me of, and the only welcome sign this will give, will be to inmates at HMP Elmley, HMP Swaleside and HMP Stamford Hill, because this is a pretty much direct replication, forgive the colour scheme, of what is there at the moment. So welcome to Sheppey. This is what you're going to be in, but it's further down the road. Careers and training. Excuse me. Careers and training. It's a care home. Not being funny. Green credentials. Yeah, okay, it ticks boxes on green credentials. And the words that were used, quality of life. I put to you, Chairman, what quality of life? Unless you go, sorry, unless you stay inside the building where you have a potentially air-conditioned and quiet quality of life, the mere aspect of opening a window or walking in the picturesque grounds with incredible views, that's not going to happen. All that said, I do understand the need for care homes. I do understand that there is a desire for people to spend their final years, their later years in life, in peace and tranquility. Mr. Chairman, this is not the right size and scale and design of building, full stop. And this is absolutely not in the right location. Whoever lives, should this property go ahead, whoever lives here, I would suggest they will be blighted for many years to come. Now, that's not how I'm sure we wish our elderly relatives and friends and family and loved ones to spend their final years. I think this is a wholly inappropriate location. And again, I'm deeply concerned that KCC Highways are not here, because I would yet again ask them the question, because they have not taken into account the travel movements. Understandably, Chairman, I will not be voting in favour of this.
Okay, thank you. I see no other speakers. There have been suggestions for changes. I don't want us to rule out or not to give those potential changes an opportunity. But if anybody wants to propose a deferral to seek changes, I'll take that first. Councillor Booth.
I'll second.
I'm not doing it.
I haven't said it yet, Mr. Councillor Winkless, sorry. Mr. Chairman, I'm proposing deferment of this to address some of the items that have already been spoken about, and hopefully that our respected officer group can address some of those items directly with the applicant to, we hope, receive a more suitable application.
Councillor Hunt, would you like to outline some of the issues you raised for the deferment?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Save me for doing it.
Happy to second it, but mine would be for officers to go back to discuss the design. And it is the mass of the building, but obviously I understand why it is that size. But I think design features can overcome that and try and blend it in with the area better and landscape.
So on that basis, would anybody like to add any further reasons for deferment? Councillor Clark.
Apologies. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I didn't get my hand up in time to speak on the earlier, before the deferral was recommended or proposed. Page 101, item paragraph 4.15, plan show the area for the bin storage in the car park. Swept paths drawings will need to be provided for freighters. It doesn't appear that there's anywhere in there for freighters to turn around. So that's something else that I'd like the officers to look at. And whilst the design is an improvement on some of the designs of care homes we've had put up in the borough over the last few years, I have to agree with others that it could be significantly improved.
Okay, on that basis, are we, is that to speak? Yep, go on, Councillor Gould.
Just if we're adding grounds to the deferment to give more time to actually get a response from the NHS.
Oh, okay, so on that basis, I'll move deferral. No, you've moved deferral. Councillor Booth moved deferral, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Have you got a list of everything okay? Yep. Okay, those in favour of deferral, please indicate. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. The next item is 3.1, which is 501613, land to east of Orchard House, Upchurch. This is recommended for refusal. Who's doing this one? Andy?
Right, thank you, Chairman. There's no update in terms of material submitted under the planning application, although I do understand that the applicant had contacted members and provided some information to them over recent days. Just a brief presentation on the application. So the application site, as you can see in red here, it's an area of land to the east of the property known as Orchard House. That property you can see immediately to the west of the red line and within the blue line area, which is land that's also owned by the applicant. The site is a large and roughly rectangular shaped plot of land, part of which contains the remnants of some buildings which you can see towards the back of the site. I believe that there was also an open swimming pool to the front of that building at some time as well. Members can also see that there's a railway line immediately to the rear of the site, and obviously you have the A2 road immediately to the south as well. Further to the south, just at the bottom of the screen, you can see the former cold store warehouse on Spade Lane. Just to give a bit of a wider context to the site, if I just show with my arrow where the site is, which is here. So members can see that the site is located between Rainham and Newington. It's remote from those settlements and within what we class as countryside. The locations are roughly 2 kilometres in either direction to those settlements. This is the existing site. You can see that there is an access to the east here, which serves the land to the east of the existing property. And there's a field gate at the moment, which provides an entrance onto the A2. That's entirely separate to the access for the dwelling itself, which is here. This is the proposal. So the proposal is for a 3-bed bungalow on the plot. It's approximately 30 metres back from the frontage, the A2, and the building would utilise the existing field access onto the A2, have its own separate access. These are some more detailed floor plans of the property. As I've already said, it's a proposed 3-bed unit. These are the elevations. So the property's single storey. It has two wings. It's quite contemporary in style. The majority of the external finishes will be a combination of vertical and horizontal timber cladding. It also includes green roofs, one of which you can see on one of the wings of the building. And likewise, other elevations there of the building and the green roof on the other wing. On the roof of the building, solar panels are proposed in the flat roof section in between the 2 green wings, and also on top of I think that's the garage structure. So these are photographs of the site at the moment. So this photograph on the left is taken immediately to the east of the site. So you're looking across the application site towards the existing property. The photo on the right is taken in the same location, but looking back towards the back end of the site. You can see the remnants of the existing building on site in the background, and behind the fence is where the railway line is. The left-hand picture is again looking across part of the site towards the A2, and there's a bank of hedging which members can see there that separate the site from the road. The photo on the right is the access to the site, which will be utilised as the access for the dwelling. And these are photographs taken from the A2, looking in both directions. I should also add, in terms of the dwelling itself, it is proposed as a self-build dwelling, but notwithstanding the fact that it's a self-build and notwithstanding the fact that the council doesn't have a 5-year supply as is set out in the report, officers consider that the site is fundamentally remote and not sustainable. And in addition to that, given that the surrounding area is, in the officer's opinion, predominantly rural in character, the officers consider that the harm caused by the development due to those factors outweighs the benefits of housing supply for one dwelling, and the recommendation is for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Nick Blunt, the agent, to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors. I'm here to speak on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Rowe, who currently live in Orchard House, the property directly to the west of the application site. The land in question on which the proposed dwelling is located currently forms part of their garden. As you see, you've just heard, officers consider that the balance is that the positive benefit of having a new dwelling on site and as a self-built dwelling, and the ecological enhancements that are proposed as part of the application are not sufficient to outweigh the expected harm to the open countryside. We disagree, as you would expect of that. Mr. Rowe lived on site for 27 years. That land immediately to the east of their house has been formed their garden for that time. I think, as it was mentioned, and in the supporting statement, there are photographs showing that when we're back, that whole area was used. Whilst there are what was described as remnants of the building at the back of the site, that is the former pool house, which is currently being refurbished. There was a swimming pool there. Also in that garden, there was a pergola, there were fish ponds, there were barbecue areas. So the whole area was used. And as I'm sure you'll be familiar, under the Dartford ruling, rural residential gardens in the countryside are considered to be previously developed land. So our view is that the whole site is previously developed land, and as such, it's incumbent to make best use in the absence of the housing supply. We are proposing the single dwelling for the applicants to downsize and retire into. The property, as has been described, is a contemporary in style. Its aim is to be sustainable, low energy house. In terms of the location of the site, it is acknowledged that we are in the countryside. But the policy of the outside built-up area settlements specifically states that all other settlements and sporadic buildings are considered to sit in the open countryside, where the primary objective is to protect it from isolated and/or large-scale developments. The officer acknowledged that this is not an isolated location, and it clearly isn't a large-scale development. We don't believe that the harm caused by a single low-profile dwelling on a well-screened site located between the A2 and the railway lines is sufficient to outweigh the benefits of delivering an additional bungalow for a retirement property that is a self-built property that adds to the housing supply. And as such, we would ask that you overturn the officer's recommendation and support us. So in summary, we're contributing to the housing supply shortfall. We're contributing to the customer self-built shortfall. We're making best use of previously developed land. We're located in an area that has been identified in the bearing fruits as having good service access with footpaths to both settlements in our direction, bus services in both directions, and cycle ability to cycle to both directions. The development will provide positive enhancement to biodiversity and use of the site. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, you wish to speak as a ward member?
Yes, we do, Chair. I think both of us do, but if you don't mind, I'll go first, and Chris will go afterwards and have the more calming effect. I think the agent put it quite well there, but I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story. It's a tale of two applications. I called this application in when I discovered it was going to be refused in June. There's no parish council objection, no objection from residents, but it is an officer's recommendation for refusal. This application is well presented, and the build and other enhancements are often what we as members often wish to see in applications. I was told it would be reported to planning in July. It wasn't. Not reported in August. Following some emails, it is now planning committee. One dwelling on previous developed land, which isn't visible from the A2, but can be seen by the London-bound train. The mistake this application made, the applicant made, is they didn't apply for 40 houses on Grade 1 farmland. Because this council would have ignored our policies and recommended approval. You can't just make this up, can you? This is a self-build, something I thought we encourage, but it appears to me the council only seems to encourage large developments. Can I draw your attention to another application close by for 40 houses at land at north side of Canterbury Lane, Upchurch? A single track lane with one passing point, often filled with fly tipping. The land north of Canterbury Lane is part of the Countryside Gap. This application is not part of the Countryside Gap. In the pre-application advice for the Canterbury Lane site, the officers appear to be creating policy by suggesting that council's policies for this application, the Canterbury Lane, will be ignored by Swell for the sake of granting approval. Planning policy comes from the NPPF and locally via the local plan from Swell members who are elected by the public. Members balance and weigh up applications on the merit of each case. This single application for a bungalow has good merit, but we should be acting with consistency in planning decisions, as we are often reminded. The Canterbury Lane application is considered acceptable when assessed against policies ST3, CP4, DM7 and DM14. That application is for 40 houses. This is for one application for a bungalow, and they are citing the same reasons for refusal. There does seem to be a discriminatory tendency in this council. I'm amazed at the number of applications that get approved and recommended for approval. 135 houses in Newington on Grade 1 farmland outside the built-up area approved by the planning. 25 homes outside the built-up area in Newington recommended for approval. 63 houses in Eastchurch recommended for approval, however, turned down by this committee, wisely so. Hundreds of houses put on in Faversham.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Christine Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. This proposed development seems to fit the bill for all the things we like to see in an application. I cannot understand why the officer is even considering refusal, especially when there have been no objections from either the parish council or any neighbouring properties. In fact, there are 11 letters from residents supporting it. And because it is a bungalow, which Swell is in desperately short supply of. Landscaping is to include new hedging of native plants to give screening and encourage wildlife. Environmentally, the new build will have EV charging points for cars and cycles, which will significantly reduce the impact of vehicle journeys. The actual house will have solar PV installation, solar water heating panels, space and water heating provided by air source and heat pump, rainwater harvesting, A+ rated white goods and a wind turbine in the garden. All the inclusions for this development meet the standards we would like to see on all new developments, no matter if it's one house, as in this case, or much larger developments. The proposal put forward to support the work that the Council is putting into supporting climate change, air quality and biodiversity, this application fits the bill. In addition to what Councillor Richard Palmer has put before you to consider, I cannot see why there's any reason for turning down this application, and I would urge you all to support the development. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Booth. Do I see anyone wishing to speak? I think Lloyd won that one.
Thanks, Chairman. Race is on. Is it? Have you got the picture of the proposed site layout or where the house will be? Thank you. My only concern, or actually two concerns, one on a personal basis, the actual design when you put it up at the proposed bungalow, my gut reaction was like, oh, it didn't please my eye, but that's personal one. My concern is the distance in terms of from the actual property to the A2 for particularly, for example, bin collections. It seems a rather long way because obviously you're not going to get a bin van or a truck down there. It seems rather distant unless they're going to walk it out to another point onto the A2. Or is the intention to use that, I think you said 30 metres walk to get it out? That's my only concern. Thank you.
Andy.
Yeah, it's normal practice with a development where you have a fairly long access road that's not suitable in itself for a refuse vehicle to come in and turn around. It would be normal practice for an area for bin collections to be provided close to the access, and in this instance that could be provided. It could be provided by a condition. Obviously we're recommending refusal, but we don't think that that's an issue because that couldn't be dealt with by condition if you know, other factors were in play where officers were recommending approval. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt.
Thanks. I actually like the design of it. I like something that's a little bit different. And we need bungalows and we need self-build. But I agree with the officers. We have had land around the area, which we've had this argument of it's previously developed land. My concern is what we're being told here is it's a garden to a property, so it's previously developed land, and there's another little building on there which was a ball house, so that's acceptable then to build a house on it. I'm just concerned what precedent that will set. How many people out in the countryside will suddenly be, oh, Swale Council are allowing people to build houses in their gardens all across the countryside now. I think if there is an argument that this is previously developed land, that is the sort of thing that will need to, unfortunately, be argued at appeal and looked at and see what the law is on that. But as it stands at the moment, it's something I think would be good to approve of a building looking like that and a self-build, but it's in the wrong area, and I agree with the officers.
Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In a similar vein, but with a bit more icing on the cake, I hope. I'll go to the first statement, page 127 on the conclusion. Middle of that paragraph, the tilted balance applies. I would suggest that the tilted balance does not outweigh the policies in the local plan and the inherent aims of the NPPF. When we look at the design of the proposal, again, I'm minded to agree. I do think it looks, it's ambitious, it's adventurous, and it's something different, which I, on many platforms and levels, applaud. I clearly applaud the use of the green credentials on this build, and that is amplified by the desire for self-build. So again, it ticks adventure, it ticks enthusiasm, the things that this council should be standing for. I do have sympathy with the first speakers. I'm disappointed that the parish council has not claimed a piece of, should we say, parish moral ground to protect the parished area. I'm disappointed in that, and I can't speak for them because this was their opportunity. as I said, I do have sympathy with the reasoning. Yes, it potentially isn't visible from main highway. And yes, it's not a large scale development, which we understand. However, as has already been mentioned, my complete fear with everything that we do in planning is enshrined by setting a precedent. Yes, personal experience. I had one very close to my property that I know the parish council fought vehemently to object against. And officers objected. However, the applicant dug and dug and dug and found some footings dating back to some ridiculous age, even predating me, Mr. Chairman. And it was given approval. But there was clearly a property on that development site. So based on that, again, it's with a heavy heart because I think it's a superb application, but it is definitely in the wrong location. So I will endorse the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. The opening speakers did refer to land in Canterbury Lane. I'd just like some clarity on that. There is pre-planning advice, but the officers would welcome a planning application. I think it's about 40 houses in Canterbury Lane. Now, Canterbury Lane is not far from here. It's the other side of the railway track, but it's in a more isolated area, and yet we would support housing there. So can we just have some clarity on why we would be recommending or welcoming an application there, but not here? Is it because it's one house rather than a large number?
In terms of the pre-app on Canterbury Lane, I mean, the advice that's been given by officers at this stage is informal, and it would be subject to an application if the applicant wanted to progress it, and it would need to be considered on his own merits, and it would be subject to consultation. But in terms of this application, this is the application before us, and it does need to be considered on its own planning merits. Thank you, Chair.
I'd just be a little bit worried if we turned it down, he'll come back with 40 and got a new community. Right, Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't totally made my mind up on this one yet, but at one point I want to bring up is the access on in and out onto that A2. Now, the A2 is a very busy road. Now, when we saw the picture of the road, I believe it's near the brow of Hartlip Hill, coming from the Rainham direction. Am I correct? Could you put the picture up again of the A2, please? Now, I go along there quite often. Now, is that the brow of Hartlip Hill? Now, that road gets quite foggy during the winter. And there have been some nasty accidents along over the years. People have been killed along there. So that is one of my concerns of coming out of there with the visibility on that road, especially when it's foggy. So I'm wavering at the moment on that very point. Thank you.
Can we just clarify that? Because I'm not exactly sure. I didn't think it was on the brow of Hartlip Hill, but could we just clarify that? There is, of course, a map on page 130. I think it's beyond the hill. It's near Spade Lane. Andy.
If I can just draw members' attention to the plan I've just shown on the presentation. I think you can. This is the site here. The brow of the hill that you can see is somewhere here. Hartlip Hill is over here. So there is obviously some kind of incline there, but it's not Hartlip Hill itself.
Okay, I don't see anybody else. So those in favour of the officer's recommendation to refuse, please show. 1, 2, 3. Those against the officer's recommendation to refuse, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that has been lost. I imagine we're probably going to have a proposal for permission, but we need to get conditions first. So, and reasons for approval. So, do we want to take a break whilst we get some conditions? No. Okay, we're going to give it without any conditions at all. Have we got conditions? Okay. If we want to, does anybody want to move for approval with reasons why we're approving it? Okay, I'll move that we approve it on the grounds that the damage, what would you call it, damage to the countryside and to policies is outweighed by the benefits. Councillor Gould.
And I think that the argument about the curtilage of a previously developed site, I think, is a reason that it's should be valid.
Any other reasons people would like to put forward for Councillor Hunt?
Can I just check the legality, but on the previously developed site, if we're saying that that's a reason to allow it, can we just hear from officers about that being a previously developed site and whether that is, it actually is previously developed site or not?
The level of pre-development.
I think it's questionable whether it's previously developed land or not. I think members will have seen, from what I understand, was circulated to them, that there were some historic photos that appeared to show the land being used and enjoyed as some form of larger garden to what's there at the moment. But members would also have seen the photographs that were taken on site currently, which suggest that the land is, largely undeveloped. It's indisputable that there's a building to the north of the site, so there are elements of the site that are previously developed land at the very least. But even if we took the view that the site was previously developed land, that doesn't mean that anything goes on that site. You have to look at it in its context. And in this instance, you've got a site that is largely green, undeveloped land with a relatively small building on it. Now, that's very different to a site that could be in a rural area that's previously developed land that was an industrial site, for example, had hard standing all the way across it and many buildings on it. So you do have to look at that context. So you could say that you could take the view that technically it was previously developed land, but I would still suggest that when you're applying the test then about developing previously developed land, it still has very much predominantly an undeveloped character to it. I would be concerned that if that was used as a reason, it could very easily be used on other similar large plots. And of course, in the countryside, we do have houses that do occupy quite large grounds where you could end up in a similar situation here. And whilst each application is determined on its own merits, obviously, we do also have to apply a degree of consistency as well.
Could we use the phrase lack of evidence that it wasn't previously undeveloped?
In a way, I don't think whether it's previously developed or not, actually, in my mind, plays heavily on whether we should or shouldn't be granting permission, because that's just a name given to the land, but actually all the characteristics and qualities of it, I mean, I'll bring the photo back up, but the characteristics and qualities of that land, I would suggest, are very much open and undeveloped.
And suitable for 40 houses. Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do find that a relatively narrow strip of land between the A2 and the main line service to London, it's classed as open countryside, especially when it's also in very close proximity to a distribution centre. But obviously, the nurseries and along the further along the road on the same side are obviously classed as farmland, I gather, even though they've got buildings. But you'd have to class them as farmland and undeveloped to win your case on that one. And I'm also a bit busy. Other times we've actually been thrown right back when we've actually been forced to give permission to places that are on actually not just open countryside, but in the countryside gap between villages, forcing the whole thing to merge together. And then we lost the whole thing. So we got a bit of a double deal going on between the council's logic to what is open countryside. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Any, right, so Councillor Booth?
Yeah, am I talking to your proposal?
I haven't proposed it yet, but sort of, yeah.
Right, okay, I'll carry on there. Thank you. This is a garden. This is a garden, Mr. Chairman. Not got a house on it. It never has had a house on it. It's a garden. It may have had a pool hall and a gazebo and an umbrella. It's a garden. With the greatest respect, I believe this council, this committee needs to tread extremely carefully with this decision. I know we can't look into the future, but if we are overwhelmed by hundreds of applications for similar developments, we will be in a very difficult position, Mr. Chairman, to pick and choose. The comment has been made. We assess each application on its own merits. I understand that. However, I do believe we need to tread extremely carefully. I have listened to Mr. Burns' commentary, and I believe that to be sound, and I believe that to lay a consistent pathway for this committee. I don't want to be party to random sprawling development throughout our countryside. I think we can kiss goodbye to some of the beautiful areas of this borough should we take that path. Thank you, Chairman.
So I think the advice is that we don't include the use of pre-developed land as part of the reasoning. Rich, Councillor Hunt.
I'll try and summarise what I'm thinking. Obviously, whilst it's accepting that it is in the countryside, because it's a self-build and the design of it as well, that the balance, because of no 5-year supply, is what makes it acceptable.
Are you going to use the phrase exceptional build? As
no, because it's not exceptional. But in the balance, it's all right. And it's obviously the decision maker that balances it up, and the committee is coming up with a different reason. But that keeps it away from anything with previously developed land, and you are taking account of design when you are considering that balance. But I still wouldn't vote for it.
I think the self-build element is important. Pardon? And we need the conditions, yes. Are we happy to include the importance of including a self-build?
Chairman, can I call for a recorded vote when we
You certainly can. Anybody else agree with that? Yep, happy with a recorded vote. Yep. So we've got self-build. I struggle with really good design. But if that's what you people think. Okay, let's see. Do people think it is of a interesting design? Indication of those of you who think that it's an interesting design worthy of support on that basis. Yep.
I believe I'm correct in saying that there's nothing been proposed or seconded for this motion to approve yet.
No, that's what we're working on.
Has it been proposed and seconded, or are we just talking into the air?
It's been proposed and seconded. We're looking at is the reasons, if we're going to vote on a refusal, what the reasons are. The reasons for approval, yeah. What the reasons are. And it's now been suggested that it is of a interesting design. But is what a phrase that you use when you think something's nice enough to give it a balance?
Usually exceptional design, but in terms of, this, members were minded to, or are minded to go the other way to officers. I think it can be sort of weighed up quite nicely in terms of the harm to the countryside versus the benefits of the scheme. And as Councillor Hunt has already pointed out, it does include the delivery of a self-build unit that could weigh in favour of approving the scheme, should members decide that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, under Councillor Gould.
I was wondering whether in conditioning it, we could look at try and have significant improvement in biodiversity, because that seems to be just an open field, and there could be significant improvements there brought in on conditioning, especially if it has a low impact from the energy use point of view as well.
Andy? Andy?
Yeah, we could impose a condition that requires biodiversity enhancements.
Okay then, on that grounds, I move Councillor Bowen.
As I mentioned earlier about the bins, and the officer was saying about a particular place for them to be retained near the A2, I think that if we're looking at conditions, that needs to go in there as well. That doesn't mean how I'm going to vote on this, because I don't find it interesting.
Yes. Okay, so on that basis, those in favour of approving the design, please show.
A recorded vote, Chairman.
Recorded vote. Okay. I'm looking forward to this not going through, and I don't know what to do. Okay, this is to vote in to approve the to improve the application. Councillor Winkless.
For.
Councillor Cheeseman.
For.
Who's subbing for Angie Vals? On. All right. Councillor Gould.
For.
Councillor Stephen.
For.
Councillor Bowen.
As previously on, oh God, abstain. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Perkin.
Against.
Councillor Hall. Councillor Golding.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Booth.
Against.
And I'll abstain. Right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for, 4 against, and 3 abstentions. So that is approved, subject to delegation to officers for the conditions and bits. Okay. We've just got one to go back to. Which is 2.3. Placement of 9 chalets at plots in Seaview Holiday Camp, reference 502980. Who's doing that one? Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. No update for members on this one. Fairly straightforward application. This is Seaview Holiday Camp. It's one of the established camps on the island within the council's designated holiday park area in the local plan. And numerous applications have been entertained over recent years for swapping out some of the old chalets on the site with modern chalets. The site does have a mixture of chalets and caravans on it. You can possibly see from the aerial photo, you can sort of see the more modern buildings generally with the darker roofs on them that have recently been built on the site. This application is actually to replace some outdated chalets in the areas that are shown in red. There are 9 chalets in total to be replaced. And essentially the replacement chalets are slightly larger in size, but fundamentally in the same location. I might just skip through these plans of the existing chalets. This is the proposed replacement chalets. There'll be 2-bed units with a living and dining and kitchen area. Like I say, slightly bigger, but still fundamentally single story in size and scale. Photos probably the best way to show the existing chalet, so members can see that they're well past their best dates if they had them, and they've got corrugated roofs and poor form and so forth. So the proposals are to replace these with more modern units. And if members can see the last photo on the right, that actually shows a row of modern chalets that were permitted by the council recently. And essentially the scheme is to swap out those units with these more modern style units. The local plan policy does specify that in holiday park designated areas that the council will support proposals for modernisation and improvements of the site, and officers consider that in this instance this is a clear case of modernising the existing accommodation on the site. The one other thing that I'll just raise, members will probably already be aware from the report that this site's one of our more unusual sites on the island, because whereas most of our sites have occupancy of chalets and caravans restricted by condition to a maximum of 10 months, the chalets on this site actually benefit from a very long-standing permission for use over 12 months rather than 10. As this is an application to swap an existing chalet with a new chalet, the council, it wouldn't be reasonable for the council to now seek to impose conditions that restrict use and provide a restriction that's more onerous than the current chalets enjoy. And that's the approach that's been taken with these new chalets that have already been erected on the site. So if any members are wondering why there isn't any form of condition that restricts use to a 10-month period, it's because the site has always operated, or at least the chalets on the site have always operated with the ability to occupy the chalets all year round. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I fully understand it, Mr. Bowen. Thank you very much. The qualification about 12-month and 10-month is very tenuous on the Isle of Sheppey. There's quite a large common misconception that all caravans and chalets have a 10-month, which is inaccurate. There are quite a number actually that have got 12-month. So I applaud that. Couple of qualifications. Is it chalet for chalet or is it chalet for mobile home?
Can you just clarify that quickly?
Yeah, it's chalet for chalet.
Fantastic. In that case, Chairman, I have no reason other than to endorse the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think I echo Councillor Booth's last comments there. I think anything that is going to improve the chalets, the ones that have been standing there go back to about the 1950s, I think. where some of us probably remember the old Hardy Hire comedy show years ago. But so actual fact, yes, it's a very good proposal. We're a quarter way through this century now. It's about time we brought some of these places up to spec. So, thank you.
Don't you think they're historic period pieces now? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the Hardy High thing in mind, I think actually by updating these challenges, it'll be a good night to campers. I find it frustrating that that this has come. I presume that because of the objection from the Leytonstone Parish Council, this is the reason why it's come to the committee. Otherwise, it would have gone for an officer delegation. If you have a shed in your back garden and it wears out, you replace it with a new shed. To me, it's as simple as that. These chalets have worn out. It needs new chalets. It was already clear that, as you said, it's a 12-month occupation. So actually, and where are Leytonstone Parish Council? The amount of time that would have gone into generating this report to come here tonight for actually no real reason, I find very frustrating. So the quicker we move on and get this agreed, the better. Thank you.
So who else had their hand up? I think somebody did. They bottled it. Okay, then. It was you, wasn't it, Councillor Gould?
I've withdrawn my comment. It's just right. Well, okay, we'll ask the question. What energy standard are they going to be brought up to? Has that been specified in the report?
Yes, there was information submitted with the application that stated that they would exceed the building regs. When I say exceed the building regs, I think we're still talking of the old building regs, like our 50% condition does. They would exceed it by 32%, I believe it is. That's a figure that this committee have previously accepted for holiday parks, and that's the figure that we've used moving forwards on this holiday park to achieve energy efficiencies.
Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? And that is unanimous, thank you. Item 5, does anybody wish to make any comments on Councillor Booth?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's a couple that stick in the craw. $5.12. Norton, 1 The Kennels, Rushet Lane. I think some of the wording in the inspector's sum up, to me, does leave a little bit for doubt, but that's his decision. So that's disappointing. I'm very disappointed in 5.14. Very disappointed. Time and time again, we see Gypsy Traveller community win appeals. I can't suggest it's because of the agent that they use, but he's a mighty skilled man in overturning refusals. Mighty skilled. Again, let's err on the side of caution. And the one that takes up the big chunk of space here is 5.8, which is London Road at Newington, which is 435 dwellings. In a similar vein to some of the things we've spoken about this evening, Chairman, I think conversely, the inspector has absolutely nailed it. And where this authority turned that down, he's actually overturned that. And I think he's got it absolutely spot on. Apart from that, it's a mix. We've mainly won, haven't we? Because they've been dismissed. I don't want to go local with the one at Warden Road, but that's an absolutely brilliant decision. Apart from that, Chairman, yeah, again, the comment I made at the last meeting, it's worth keeping the notes of those appeals because there's some really clever use of words and things that this committee can use in future in either approving or overturning. So yeah, apart from that, I'll zip it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Booth. If there's no one else, then I'll wish you good night. And I'm so glad I didn't have to suspend standing orders tonight.